Welcome, everyone. My name is Tracy Fitzpatrick, and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We are very excited to host today's event, leveraging GPT-4 Turbo and Copilot for AI, Security Masterclass. Presenting today's topic is Tom Kinzer. Tom is a Microsoft certified trainer and a software developer, holding multiple certifications in Azure, data engineering analysis, and web technologies. His contributions extend across various channels, be it through dynamic classroom training, personalized training materials, or hands-on on-site consulting. Now, please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored to your specific requirements. If you are interested in a further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you'll get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Netcom Learning helps customers build innovative learning organizations by achieving a smarter workforce, adapting to change, and driving growth. We do this with a broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans, and our global delivery capabilities. Since 1998, we have been empowering organizations with our managed learning services to help them reach optimal performance results and address challenges. We do have 9 practice areas in which we specialize. They encompass people, process, and technology training. And today's presentation is from the security practice area. Netcom Learning offers a comprehensive training portfolio of courses for the topic being covered today. Our upcoming classes include various trainings on the given courses. You can also access a variety of marketing assets, such as the free training and blogs, by clicking on the available event handout. These offerings can be found with a simple search on our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session will cover the groundbreaking capabilities of Copilot powered by GPT-4 Turbo and its impact on security. This masterclass has been designed to discover Microsoft's cutting-edge security solutions and its pivotal role played by generative AI in empowering security professionals. In addition, participants will get guidance on effectively preparing for the SC 900 certification course and exam in today's session. And now I would like to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To begin with, you do have the option to view in full screen by clicking on the full screen button on the right side of the GoToWebinar viewer. Simply hit the escape key to exit the full screen. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters here in the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. And to get the best out of today's events, we've included the slides, courses we talk about, and marketing assets in the handout section of your GoToWebinar viewer. You may refer to them at any time to get a better understanding of today's topic. And we do realize that some of you may have to leave early and want to let you know that as you do leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to take a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience and improve our future sessions for you. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. And now I'd like to pass this over to our trainer to present today's topic. Hey, Tom, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tracy, and welcome everyone to this masterclass, leveraging GPT-4 Turbo and Copilot for AI. My name is Tom Kinzer. I'm a certified trainer and with Netcom Learning. Please feel free to visit us, and we'll have more information too about further training and certification at the end of this presentation. So, of course, this is a very popular topic right now in IT. We've all heard of GPT version 1 through 4 and now Turbo. and also how Microsoft is leveraging it with Copilot throughout Microsoft 365 within Visual Studio and also through GitHub. So you'll see the word Copilot in a lot of different areas. And because of that, sometimes we're not too sure how to use it, when to use it, etc. But we're going to look at this. We're going to look at a brief background of GPT and how Microsoft is using it in, excuse me, and how Microsoft is using it in Copilot. So we'll have a quick introduction, a short history that leads us up to GPT-4 Turbo, and then start discussing how it's used within Microsoft's products. Quite a few demonstrations as we go through this, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the very end. So introduction is, what is GPT? How does it work? Now, of course, we could go into a lot of detail about how it works, but usually getting a few pointers and acronyms out of the way, leaving you an opportunity to research some of the more detailed information behind GPT. What are the main features? What are some of the achievements with GPT-4? And then, of course, how is Microsoft using this as part of Copilot and throughout their different products? So to start with, GPT, not a very catchy name, not kind of odd. Everybody wonders, well, what does that stand for? Generative Pre-trained Transformer. That doesn't give you much more information either, but it is a product or a model, basically, developed by OpenAI. OpenAI is a research institute for advancing artificial intelligence, and they've come up with multiple models, including GPT, that runs ChatGPT, and several other models that can be used within AI. GPT is itself what's called an LLM, a large-scale language model. And it's based on the transformer architecture that was originated from Google. Well, then that begs the question, well, what is transformer architecture from Google? Well, the description here may not fully answer it. I'll give you a link too as well to see what that is. The transformer architecture is a neural network. What it does, it's been designed to work with sequential data, any type of sequential data, whether it's words like in a language, whether it's a series of codes like DNA, or anything else that you can read as individual pieces or sequence of parts. And it uses something called attention mechanisms to weigh the importance of different parts of that full sequence to get their context, their dependency, and relationship with other parts in the sequence. This has really revolutionized and really caused AI to jump forward, to leap forward with abilities that no one thought was going to be possible this early. So as a side note, I want to give you a link to NVIDIA, which has really been a huge benefactor from all of this because they create the chips. So what is a transformer model? Well, this link under blobs.nvidia blog, what is a transformer model? Great source material to go in and describe how does it work, what are some concepts behind it, and why it really has revolutionized AI beyond some of the older techniques, the older types of neural networks, such as convolutional and recurrent neural networks. So what is an LLM then? Well, an LLM focuses on the language. It stands for large scale language model. So of course, when we are conversing in words, that is a sequential set of data, words. So what happens here with an LLM is it gets trained on the words from one or more languages, so it can interpret, what's appropriate, what are common dependencies and relationships between words, what's the context, and then it can turn around and generate brand new human-like text and also support natural language processing tasks, especially obvious with translation from one language to another. There are many LLMs out there. Some of the most popular right now, of course, including GPT, is also BERT and T5. Another excellent source, if you'd like to compare those three, is right here at medium.com. Published an article about BERT, GPT, and T5. How are they similar? It also talks about the attention mechanism that's included. So if you're interested in the low-level technical concepts here, you can reference this. So at medium.com, you can do a search for this topic, BERT, GPT, T5. And there's many others, but those are right now currently most the most popular based models. So GPT itself, again from OpenAI, is trained on an enormous and diverse range of data. All of it, of course, based on text, human readable text across the internet and many other sources. But it uses what's called unsupervised pre-training, which means it's not been given any uh, labels in order to interpret what it should do. It's basically just reviewing all the content that's being fed to it so it can generate brand new content. And also implementing some different tuning mechanisms. Each release is larger and more tuned and tested for appropriate responses. Now, the new versions of GPT have to be trained and updated periodically because on the day that they're released, they will only have information up to that release date. So every new model is going to expand on many more parameters and data being consumed, and also to bring it up to date with the current text data that it may encounter. So when you see that a particular GPT model was released, say, back in March 2022, or uh, maybe further back to 20s, that means everything that's happened since then, it is not aware of. So there has to be other ways of including more data to complement the model that you choose to use. But OpenAI is planning, of course, constantly to come out with new versions to bring it up to date with the most current information available for its model. And the reason it's not kept up to date deliberately is that it's much faster if it's not having to constantly go out and search for brand new information. But there are other techniques that are being introduced also for large learning models, different ways of keeping it up to date and complementing what's already there with not just new information, but information that maybe you own within your business. So you can always extend this base model. They're also referred to as foundational models because it's a starting point. So whatever the newest version of these LLMs and particularly the GPT model, it can be extended. You can complement it with more information and use it just as the base, as a starting point. So that's GPT, generative pre-trained transformer, and we've gone through multiple versions in recent years. Here they are. 2018, not that long ago, just 6 years ago, GPT-1 was introduced. And it was leveraging this new concept of a transformer architecture. And it was built with 117 million parameters, which at the time was quite a bit. But that's when it started getting some interesting results and became obvious that this was a game changer, that this was about to change the way we view AI. And that was an understatement because GPT-2 came out, which is scaled up, and it has a huge jump in parameters, 1.5 billion parameters, and that had impressive results. And then GPT-3 the very next year with 175 billion parameters. And then not long after that, 3.5 came out as an updated model of 3, and it became the basis for what really opened up everybody's eyes to this concept with ChatGPT. So ChatGPT started this craze about what is this? What is AI? What is GPT? What are LLMs? And those that wanted to investigate further to learn about the underlying architecture that made all this possible. Another reason why this became possible is because of the advent of cloud services. OpenAI is training their models using Microsoft Azure computers, high performance computers in the cloud, so it can be scaled to whatever level they need and only have to support or pay for that while it's being used to create the model. Once the model is created, it becomes a stagnant copy. And so it doesn't need that full processing power to be used. So actually, you can create your own LLMs, your own form of GPT as well with the same concept. But OpenAI is doing that for us. And then just last year, GPT-4 came out at the beginning of the year, a little over a year from today, and it is using an estimated number of parameters. Now, they haven't really confirmed this, is 1.76 trillion parameters in order to build this model. Another huge, an astronomical jump. Uh, and it also introduces what's called multimodal capabilities, where we don't have to just rely on text. It can even use images as input and can generate both text, images, and also text to speech. And the new version of ChatGPT has been released for particularly for GPT-4 called ChatGPT Plus. So that's about where we are now, except there was one more release, and that is GPT-4 Turbo, also last year, exactly a year ago. And this is where we are today. It has multimodal abilities, just like its predecessor, but with the word turbo, they didn't use 4.5. They just added this turbo phrase on the end to process, again, multimodal concepts, both text and images. And it will also be able to generate new text, new images, text to speech from this type of input. So now we don't have to just text or speak to it either. We can give it images to interpret. The biggest improvement, though, is the second bullet point here. It can now support 128,000 tokens. What is a token? Well, a token is really how input and output is measured. So if you need to prompt it to tell it what you want, what you need it to do, you can now use approximately 128,000 words if you view tokens as one-to-one with words. They're not exactly one-to-one with words, but they're very close. But that's about 300 pages of input to give it instructions about what you want from it. And that is extremely important because the word prompt here is in a single prompt. That's what must be used in order to get exactly what you want from any LLM, and particularly with GPT. It needs very explicit instructions. Just like when you ask a person to do something for you, particularly someone that maybe a child or I think of teaching a teenager how to drive, how specific you have to be, even if you're riding in the car with them. There's so many things that we take for granted that we do automatically that we may make the same assumptions when you're teaching a teenager how to drive, especially a standard shift. Put the clutch in, release it, press the accelerator. It takes quite a bit of coordination. But those are things we forget, and we assume, especially when we're talking with peers, say in an IT department, a marketing department, we use terminology that may not be fully understood to someone that's new. So whenever you're prompting GPT or any LLM, sometimes you have to give it very explicit context and how you want it to be done. And so now that we have 300 pages worth of text that we could provide instructions to, that increases the much higher chance that we're going to get relevant information that we expect. Prompt engineering is now a new role that you may start hearing a lot more of, that maybe you need to prepare for your organization for, is to be able to engineer proper prompts in how you want GPT to respond. The more specific you are, the more examples you give it, the more likely it's going to be relevant to what you need. So that is a huge improvement over all previous versions of GPT, and a big improvement over GPT-4. It was a much larger jump in supporting 128,000 tokens. And we expect, too, with a word like turbo, that it's going to be better performance. It is reliable, it's creative. We can also control if we want it to be more creative than maybe a previous response. So we can use sliders to say, stay to the original thing you gave me, but let's do something slightly different, or just say, give me something totally new, make it more creative. Nuanced instructions, and again, that goes back to those tokens. You can tell it to do it in the style of something else, or to make that more casual, more formal, or pinpoint specific areas that you want to leave out. So no matter what it generates, we are still responsible for the information, the instructions we give it, and also to filter out and review the response that we get back. And all of this is cheaper than GPT-4. In some cases, at least twice as cheap or inexpensive, sometimes even 3 times as inexpensive as the previous release. System message control is very closely related to prompting, and what it is it basically sets the role or the specific directives at the beginning of your prompting session. So you could say you are a Python developer. And when you say you are, you're telling the model that's what you're going to act as. So you tell the model, I want you to respond as a Python developer, and then you never have to tell it that again. And every question that you ask could be returned in Python code. Or you could say you are a certain age. Maybe you say, okay, you're a 6-year-old, and I need you to explain something to another 6-year-old using their terminology. Or you could say you're an IRS auditor, and you need to explain things in very specific legalese, so it's very clear what you may need to do with an IRS agent. So adjust the tone, adjust the format. It could be English, it could be another language, it could be C# code, it could be Java code. You are being very specific in the system message control, so you don't have to repeat that in the prompt. You just say, here's your role, here's what you're going to act like, and you can even give it a character. You can say you're in a certain part of the country. You could say you're Creole, and I want you to respond with a Creole accent, or you're from Boston. I want you to use terminology. Very now. Of course, you're not going to hear any dialects, but there may be certain terms and words that are only used in different parts of the country or around the world. So by setting the system message, you are actually controlling the feel of the response when it comes back. Everything about it can be controlled by the system message. And then we also have external interface interaction so that we can work with other interfaces instead of just always having to go, say, to the GPT-4 API directly or to some type of testing area like Copilot in Microsoft. It could be part of many other products with completely new external interfaces. And of course, with APIs, we can make that happen now. OpenAI has its own APIs. Microsoft Azure also has its own APIs to access the same model. We can do web searches. We can even create your own APIs to leverage the artificial intelligence that comes with these LLMs. So this is the current version. It's still a year old. We can expect things to change either this year or early next year with the next version. And if you notice, it's taking exponential jumps in capability. So GPT-3 was impressive enough. GPT-4 now is faster, and now that we have bigger context windows or massive context windows, as mentioned here, we can give it very explicit instructions. So we expect to get more relevant, accurate information back. Now, when it comes to accuracy, I'm sure you've heard the term of hallucinations. These types of models are capable and likely to hallucinate sometimes because remember, they're not aware of the concept of what's true and false. They're only aware of what has been fed into the model. And sometimes it will follow a certain path because there seems to be a strong relationship with certain terms. So it's being taught, what those relationships are and what that context is for that series of words in the model. So we always have to verify anything that's created to make sure that there's no hallucinations. Even if it's an image or text, we still have that responsibility to verify what's being generated. But because it can generate so much, we may go lax on that, and especially if we haven't seen any obvious hallucinations in a long time, we may say it's fine, it's doing all right. But as soon as you don't check it, you're going to get an unexpected result. Recently, there's been a lot of tests too for healthcare. It's not quite there yet to be trustworthy to do diagnostics, much less provide prescriptive care of what should be done, but it can do quite well in general direction, but we still cannot trust it for complete accuracy. And unfortunately, most people are not going to be willing to double check, or they may say, well, what's the use of using it if it's going to occasionally return something false? Well, it still is an excellent tool for things like brainstorming, for providing ideas, but still you would need to be absolutely positive and sure about the content before you would republish it or take ownership of it. So, of course, we're going through a major changes just within the governments to see how this is going to be managed, hopefully not controlled or shut down, but how can it be properly used responsibly? And many organizations are also grappling with that issue. What does it mean to use this responsibly? What are we trying to uh, avoid, and making it very clear, what we expect these models to do? Because remember, they're generative, which means they are generating brand new content that has never existed before, based on the likelihood of words or images that it has learned and been trained on over the years. So of course that brings up issues of copyright problems. How well did it learn? Is it actually copying things word for word, or stroke by stroke for images, pixel by pixel on photographs? Well, even though it is generative, it is borrowing from everything that it learned from. So again, we need to make sure that we verify what it generates. So that brings us to Microsoft. How is Microsoft leveraging GPT? Well, since OpenAI is creating these models, then of course they're going to have the immediate responsibility of publishing them and making them available. So let's go over and look at OpenAI real quick. This one's an easy one to remember, openai.com. Now this is the authority on ChatGPT. And right here on their homepage too, they're introducing Sora, which is creating video from text. Basically tell it what type of video you want. That is impressive. Going to be seeing that probably getting more and more accurate and impressive as time goes on. But we're here really to look at ChatGPT. So you can get an overview of it here, what version it's in. You can even try it out. You can also get help on how do we use the APIs to leverage uh, these models directly from within code. Now you can have an account, you can log in, but they've also released ChatGPT as a free opportunity for you to experiment with it. So OpenAI, of course, is a separate organization. Microsoft has invested heavily in OpenAI, and then they've brought it forward. And what we first saw is Bing Chat. So if we go to Bing.com, it's almost synonymous, of course, when we start seeing things pop up. We can see right here the Copilot logo, indicating that now you can just talk to Copilot, the same language model. It's also up here at the top. So even though it has direct search capabilities, it can also interpret your language as an LLM in order to return results from the web based on GPT. So that's probably where most people first experienced it. And it was called Bing Chat originally, but it's also called Copilot also within Bing in order to help you find content better. And of course, Google has its own AI as well. They're developing separate models, just like any other technical company, very interested in AI. Well, there's a huge interest now in LLMs. So in Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, sorry about that, back up. Microsoft is using Copilot. Now, inside Visual Studio, we were first introduced to Copilot as GitHub Copilot, because Microsoft owns GitHub, and it's an open source repository and a project management tool for developers in IT. So they made it available there first, and then introduced it into Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio, With each new release of Visual Studio, they were introducing more and more capabilities. We'll have a demo of that in just a moment. But now, in the last month, and up, and currently in the last month, they've introduced newer and newer models behind the different products. So now Microsoft Copilot is leveraging the latest version, GPT-4 Turbo. And remember, it is a year old, but it's now being introduced. So we now have the latest model from OpenAI behind Copilot. So Copilot, remember, is being used in many different products. It started with developers, Visual Studio Code, but then it was added to Microsoft 365. And that's when it really got most of its visibility because many businesses are using Microsoft 365. And it combines the power of an LLM as GPT with your own data. So contents in documents, in spreadsheets, also leveraging Microsoft Graph. Now, Microsoft Graph is built into Microsoft 365, and a quick link over to Microsoft Graph, basically taking you to learn.microsoft.com and giving you an overview of Microsoft Graph. What is it? Well, you can think of it as a database because it's storing all information and metadata about what every person does in Microsoft 365, what documents they're part of, what teams they're part of, so that you can do searches across that content and it be relevant to the relationships between people, documents, items, everything in SharePoint, in your email, so that all of it can be graphed and searchable. And then leveraging that with Copilot should greatly improve the searching capabilities within Microsoft 365. And then if you really want to use Copilot directly in its raw form, you can go straight to copilot.microsoft.com. So you could use it through Bing search, or you could go straight to here, copilot.microsoft.com, in order to work with text or to work with images. And then they go ahead and give you a few things that you could just actually try out. Notice here it says summarize the main points of the latest research in AI. I need a gift my friend who likes to hike in cold weather. Now, what are some possible gifts? Generating pictures. So any one of these, you could just simply click on to see what is it, what is it going to generate? And they keep introducing more out here. So notice up in the top right, they also have what we would refer to as the context of what you might use it for. As a designer, vacation planner, cooking assistant, fitness trainer, you definitely want to experiment with these to get an idea. Let's see. Let's do one of these. Recreate a lost civilization, complete with architecture and scenes of daily life. Then it brings up this thinking grid while it's working on that. And notice at the bottom it's referring to something called DALL-E 3. That's another model. That was OpenAI's visual model for creating images. And there we have it. Totally new pictures, images. And any one of these we can select. So it's more than a search. It created this image based on just the wording of how it was prompted. And if you like it, you can export it, download it. You can copy it, or you can say, well, let's regenerate it. But notice down here, I can say, well, let's make a few changes. How about if I switch it to, let me go back. I'll choose a lighter color. Let's go with this one because I was going to do watercolor. All right, and that one doesn't have much color in it, but let's try watercolor. Recreating the exact same image. So it really took the image as input, and it's going to apply watercolor style techniques to that same image. Or you could say, recreate it with the same prompt, but this time being specific about making it a watercolor picture. Actually, it did. That's exactly what it did. It changed it to a different image, but it added watercolor concepts. And I could say, looks good, or I can undo it and go back to what it was. If you look at some of the other options too, it could be pixel art, steampunk, or you could say, that it should be a photograph. being very specific. So you have all these options up here. And then if you go to designer, designer is really sticking to images and what you might want to create. Here's some examples. Then we have vacation planner with some examples of what you might want to do. Swim with sharks off Bora Bora. Let's try that. So it triggers the role as a vacation planner, and then it took the prompt of swimming with sharks and given me an overview of what it is. How to swim with sharks, as if we really need to be told. Stay calm. So you can see it goes on, and then we could say, well, all right, so where can I do that? There they are. Here's your pictures. These are real, coming from TripAdvisor. Or you could go down here and say, well, let's go to Tahiti.com and follow through. So it's more than search. It's giving you context. It's giving you things to remember, information, and then also finding you more information if you choose to. What about a cooking assistant? Maybe there's certain things you're allergic to or that you have to leave out or whatever. You're on a particular diet that you could ask it. Uh, for here, just click on healthy breakfast options. So because they have pre-recorded some of these prompts, it does make it easier. But with your imagination and things that you specifically need, your requirements, you can give it the exact prompt you need. And remember, with GPT-4 Turbo, you can provide pages and pages of instruction before you ask it to do anything. Now, here is where it gets to the point, though. Is this accurate? Is this true? Well, it's going to have multiple references that you can go and check on it. But even then, is it based on marketing material or is it based on actual facts? Again, so that takes a little bit more research. Same thing with a fitness trainer. How do I do anything, whatever particular exercise or training that you need? Here's something: alternatives to traditional cardio exercises. What are some? Well, first of all, what are traditional cardio exercises, you could ask? So you can see how easy this is to just try a few things out. And this is going to give you a heads up of how you might want to use it within other products as well as in your own code. If you're a developer, calling the API, whether it's Azure API or OpenAI's API, you can get the same results back. Now, since it's generative, there could be slight differences in how it's worded, but you should get some of the same results back based on how the model was built. All right, so there's a few of the simple examples that are built right in to copilot.microsoft.com. So that's about as straightforward as you can get with Copilot without using any product. So remember that, just if you want to experiment, it's no longer just under Bing, bing.com, but directly under copilot.microsoft.com. And also you can experiment with it at openai.com. They're all based on the same models, and you can choose specific models if necessary. And speaking of OpenAI, they also have their own documentation of all the models that they've had. So if you go to platform.openai.com, you can see we've already discussed with the history. But this is a great place to keep up with, well, where are we now? And so right off of OpenAI's site, we can see that GPT-4 Turbo is the latest, and they're referring to it as with vision. And notice they've also updated it all the way up to April 9th. So they've included that as part of the name. So that means it's included information. Now that's when it was published, but if you look over to the right, what training data did it use? So the release date or the name here might be a little bit misleading because it really is to the end of the year, December 2023 of last year. But it can be you can use complementary data in order to bring it up to date or to include data that's specific to your business. It's not a dead end absolute date, December 2023. That's just the foundational date that it was that indicates what it was trained on, but it can be uh, enhanced with more information. But the further back you go, you'll notice we're going back into 2021. So 3 years off. Also, very specific separate model names as you keep going. You may have heard of Babbage and Da Vinci. Those have all been replaced with GPT-3. So GPT-3 was the first effort to consolidate many of the different models into one. We still had DALL-E, which was primarily for visual AI, but now with GPT-4 Turbo, we've got both. Got them combined, so we can use images and generate images directly from DALL-E or through GPT-4 Turbo. And of course, Microsoft has similar documentation that will let you see what models are available through Azure to leverage OpenAI's models. All right, so let's look at a few demos. I already demoed Copilot online, so that's allowing you to see how you can experiment with ChatGPT directly. Now let's look at each one of these using Copilot in Microsoft Word to start with. All right, so I'm going to start a blank document. And you immediately, and when you first get Copilot, you may get a few prompts like you see here. Discover Copilot, step through the different ways of how you can interact with it. And then if you indicate you want to try Copilot, it'll pop it up right inside the document. Or you'll notice up here in the top right, there's a link for Copilot. Now that's not automatically in Word. That is an additional service that you subscribe to and make it available within Microsoft 365 products. You also notice too that, and open that up, that it'll bring in a few directions as what you might want to try. So notice that this is the Copilot chat that's in a sidebar, but you can also use Copilot directly within a document. That same logo, if you click it, will bring up that box we just saw. So we can tell it what to do here, we can tell it what to do over there, or both. We can adjust the document, we can bring in new material. So let's do something, that could be silly, but let's see. Write a poem about whatever. Let's see. A cat on a boat. Generate. So what it's doing mathematically, following a path in the model about what is a poem, what does that indicate, what is a cat, what are all the words and terms related to a cat, what is a boat, by looking at how numerically they're related to other words and other concepts. So a cat on a boat. There once was a cat on a boat who loved to sail and to float. He wore a blue hat and a red coat, and he sang a merry note. Clever. All first four lines rhyme with each other. And then we have more. He had a friend, a little mouse. Now, see, where did the mouse come in? Well, there's this very strong relationship between a cat and a mouse. And there may also be a pretty strong relationship between a mouse on a boat or a ship. Who lived with him in the boat house. They shared their cheese and their bread, and they snuggled in their bed. They sailed across the ocean blue. They saw the dolphins and the whales too. So now it's assuming a boat like a ship, seagulls, there's animals in the sea. So it's following a path of all these related terms in order to carry this along and also to keep it relevant to the words that it's already using. And it's very fascinating too that it is aware of what words rhyme. Right? So you could keep that or you could throw it away. Now, if you throw it away, it's gone. You're not ever going to be able to regenerate that again exactly the same because it's a one-time generative process. And down here, notice it's giving me a hint. make it formal. How about we make it more whimsical? If I can figure out how to spell whimsical, as if it's not already. All right, not really that different. I'm looking at it. It was already whimsical enough. Could be some changes, but oh, it's actually a little bit longer. Oh, a lot of it. It's going to a second page. Now it's crossing into whimsical because it's talking about a mermaid, fairy, and a dragon. And then it repeats part of the poem further up. All right, let's see. Rewrite this poem in the style of Robert Frost. So it's going to borrow words and terminology that we would expect from Robert Frost. And of course, there it is, two travelers. He wrote quite a bit about traveling through the woods on a snowy evening. Let's see if it even mentions snow. All right, so that's shorter. Two travelers there were who sailed the sea, a cat in a blue hat and a mouse in red. They sang their songs with joy and glee and made their boat their cozy bed. Yeah, it has that rhythm, if you're familiar with Robert Frost, of exactly that. Make this poem sad and in the style of Edgar Allan Poe. Now, even if you misspell things, it's going to interpret it as close to the word that it's similar to in order to get it right, because misspelling something is not necessarily misdirection, unless you're spelling a different word. Alone they sailed the dismal sea. Well, already it sounds sad and more like Edgar Allan Poe. A cat in a blue hat, a mouse in red. They sang their songs with agony and made their boat their tomb of dread. They saw the horrors of the ocean deep. Isn't it fascinating how it can take something that was cheerful and whimsical and then just make it sad? And the whole style is changed and the whole different use of words because they're related to sad. And all of this is mathematical. There is no understanding of these words. It's based on a path that was established in the model as this is the most likely path we should take and choose these words that fit the prompting. Elaborate on the draft? Okay. That sounds like a good one. Elaborate on this draft. See, it starts off somewhere. I recognize that, but I didn't memorize, the whole thing. But it should be a little bit longer, maybe even more detail. So yeah, this sounds like something you might want to read. It's saying, first of all, there's a warning that this may not be high quality content. So try again. So I'm not sure where it left off. All right, so let's get away from that. So notice over here on the right, I still have this opportunity to summarize this doc, ask a question, and of course I can always select it all, get rid of it, get it down to nothing. And I could ask it to summarize it. What's the purpose? Generate something. How about generate a recipe for uh, thinking of a dessert. Let's see, chocolate con pie. Now, since I'm not typing directly in the document, when you're over in the prompt on the side, sometimes it leaves the document alone and it will generate what you're asking on the right so that you could copy and paste it where you want in the document. Yeah, there we go. It's almost there. And then it's got a nice little copy button. Come over here and I can paste it. Chocolate pecan pie is pie crust, pecan halves, large eggs, corn syrup, granulated sugar, semi-sweet chocolate chips. That's pretty good. All right, now to go with it, let's create a cold eggnog drink. Make sure it's cold because usually I think of, that it's in the winter and it should be a hot drink. Let's see what it does here. Well, it is an odd combination. I don't know if I would have pecan pie with eggnog, but interesting. 12 egg yolks. So that they got that right. And then it's throwing in cream, vanilla extract. Copy that. Now it's also could be picking up too when I'm talking, because many times you don't have to type anything in. And so I'm just building a list of recipes. Now notice it's including too that this response isn't based on the document, so you may want to adjust the content that it may have created, or you could just take off, you know, any type of wording you want. And now we have 2 recipes. And of course, you're gonna have to try it out to see if it's worth keeping. Oh, I see what happened. It stopped after step 1. May have to try that again. Now, that's also what may happen if it determines what you're asking may not be appropriate, because it does have different levels of control over how appropriate something can be. You set that level though. Like for example, if something is too violent, or something that would be inappropriate in a different situation, you can have it check that before it generates any of the content. But even then, it still might not meet your standards or your expectations. So read it thoroughly before you reuse it anywhere. All right, I'm going to get rid of all this. It's gone. And then notice there is a button over here that if I don't change the topic, it's going to remember everything about a cat and a boat, Edgar Allan Poe, pecan pie, eggnog, and then I could say, put all this together, and generate some new output, or maybe even a new image. But if I click this button, change topic, basically it's telling, forget everything I just said. Let's start new. So we're wiping the slate clean. And let's see, I'm going to, generate an outline of for a 6-year-old. Actually, I'm going to switch this around because the context can make it different. Generate an outline for dental hygiene, and we'll just leave it at that. So that should be for anybody, any age. Maybe you're a doctor or a dentist, and you just like to create a poster or a document that you'd like to give everyone. And so I generate it over here. I'll bring it here to copy it, paste it. So here's an outline for dental hygiene. Or I could just take it back to dental hygiene. It has an introduction, definition, brushing teeth, flossing, mouthwash, checkups, and conclusion. Sounds pretty thorough. All right. Rewrite this document for a 6-year-old to understand. Pretty simple. It may not change too much, but the choice of words might be slightly different. I'm curious if it's going to change the word hygiene. That might be too big a word for a 6-year-old, but we'll see what it thinks. All right, we'll copy that. And I'm actually going to go down a little bit further so we can at least compare the difference. Let's insert a new page. There we go. Dental hygiene for kids. So I said 6-year-old, interpreted that as a kid. So it's saying, well, what is dental hygiene? That's a good point because it's explaining what that word means. It means keeping your teeth clean and healthy. So it did recognize that a 6-year-old probably didn't understand that word. So let's go ahead and define it. How to brush your teeth. Pick a toothbrush that you like. Put toothpaste on it, up and down and in circles. Do this 2 times a day. Notice up here, we really didn't get all that specific. Flossing. Flossing helps clean. Hey, wait a minute. Did it not finish it? Oh, I didn't finish it. Try making a new request. All right, I'll do it again. Let me get rid of everything that's here. That's a shame. I don't know why I blocked it. Create an outline for dental hygiene that a 6-year-old would understand. Let's hope he gets all the way through it this time. It was doing such a good job. Right, when it said flossing helps clean between your teeth. It's not actually doing as good a job. Let's see, rewrite this for a 6-year-old to understand. So it sounds like, I maybe not be giving it explicit enough instructions. I might have to try it again. Or let it do its thing once and then come back and give it another adjustment so it can look back over the words it already used and see if it may need to spell that out more for a 6-year-old. I kind of like what it was doing before. Okay, let's dress it up a little bit. Write a story about brushing your teeth in the style of Dr. Seuss. I think that's how you spell it. We may get some whimsical words added in here. Copy, paste it. Now notice it's assuming that when you're typing over in the side chat, that it's probably related to the document you're working on. And so it did add that at the very beginning, that this response isn't based on the document. And then it starts off with this story. In a town not far from here lived a boy with a smile ear to ear. He brushed his teeth both night and day to keep the cavities and plaque away. Oh, this is good. With a brush of blue and a paste of white, he scrubbed his teeth with all his might, up and down and round, and he made sure no germs were found. I'm really impressed with this one. I like this. So let's save this one. So let's do File, Save As, and see, let's put it under Netcom, Artificial Intelligence, OpenAI, GPT. Here we go. And I'm going to save this as Dr. Seuss. Now I got to be careful about this because this is not a Dr. Seuss, I should say, in the style of brush your teeth. All right, let's see. Dental hygiene story in the style of Dr. Seuss. I like to capitalize some of these words in case I keep it around indefinitely. So I'm going to save it right here in the same folder where I've got this material and save it. All right. Now the reason I'm saving it is we're going to switch products now. So I'm going to minimize this and let's go to PowerPoint. I'm going to try just creating it from this content. From the following content. So if all else fails, you can take the content, post it into the Copilot chat window, but normally it can take a Word document that's in the same location. And notice what it did. It took it a little bit further. It talks about brushing your teeth, floss between, and what it took the information that started out as a story and created a formal slide presentation of what to do, even going out and choosing the pictures. And then once I have one here, I could say, let's insert another picture. Now you can always do the good old-fashioned way of insert picture from stock images, and it's going to look at the terminology. You can say, well, let's look for something called with smile in it. Maintain a healthy smile. This one looks like it's pretty good with kids. Insert that. You can say send to back. Actually, let's look at some other way of doing it. This will do it for me. That's what I want. Yeah, tips for maintaining a healthy smile. And that didn't block that. So that's all a manual process. But I could say on any one of these, change out the picture. I can go to Copilot. I can say introduce a picture. Or I can just manually delete it. This one's good. Avoid sugary and acidic foods. That's a fruit. A dentist. So good stuff. All of that was generated fly. I had to make a few adjustments. But if I still wanted that story, I could save this one, do a save as, and I'll just call it dental hygiene, and that's it. Save it. And then I can create a new story. And I could just drop the content into a new slide. Notice that this is a story of brushing your teeth. Now, we've always had the designer capability, and that's a very similar concept too. It's going out and trying to relate some of these words to images and how it could be laid out. And then you could also go to Copilot, and you could say, create a new slide based on this content. So it's got a lot of terms that it needs to work with. I could make it more colorful. Oh, it's telling me how to do it. It could have done it itself. How to add an image. So basically, it's giving me help. That's not very helpful. Let's see, add a new slide with an image of teeth or toothbrush. Good. Now, it didn't take the content from here. It just read the information that was here and said, oh, it looks like probably this would fit the best. And if it's not laid out well enough, switch over to the other AI capability. Here's a better one where I got the images, keep your teeth clean. I probably want to make this more colorful, change its style. But some of these design options are not what I was expecting. Okay, well, you get an idea. And it takes practice to work with Copilot, and we can fully expect Copilot to be constantly updated and improved, and hopefully would be able to bring in any file we wanted to create a presentation. But right now, it's not even giving me a full file lookup in PowerPoint. All right, so what's next?
All right, let's take a short break for 5 minutes and we'll go over the remaining topics after that.
Thank you so much, Tom. Before we get into the break, I'm just going to quickly take 2 to 3 minutes to make sure we take advantage of all the benefits from this session. Hello, everyone. I hope my screen is visible. My name is Sagnik, and I'm the product marketing manager handling Microsoft at Netcom Learning. And first of all, I would like to thank everyone for taking out the time and joining us today for this insightful session. Uh, I have some great news. I'd like to announce that all the participants in today's masterclass have been given exclusive free access to the SC900 Microsoft Security, Compliance, and Identity Fundamentals courseware. The best part is you also get to claim your digital achievement badges on Microsoft Learn to celebrate your newly acquired skills. Uh, so this is a great opportunity. It will be taking at most 2 minutes for you to complete the process. And these badges are great for you to showcase your credibility in your social networks like LinkedIn. These are issued by Microsoft. So let's get started. These are very simple steps. So on my screen, you can see the landing page. where we will be completing the redemption process, the link to which is included in your event handout, as well as is being shared on the chat window right now. So please refer to your GoToWebinar chat window. It should be available. And just wait for a few seconds so that everyone is able to find that link and you open this link on your end as well. Awesome. Thank you. I guess we are good to go. So on this page, you'd see over here the section which says unlock your exclusive Netcom learning advantage, start your Microsoft security skilling journey for free. So as I mentioned, you would be getting the Microsoft official courseware and is on SC900, as well as your digital achievement trophies and badges issued by Microsoft to celebrate your learning accomplishments. So it is a very simple three-step process. You can directly get started if you have a Microsoft Learn account already. You can simply click on this link on this section and get started with the redemption process. If not, we have this section. It highlights all the steps, the three major steps that we have. So the very first step is you need to create your Microsoft Learn account if you don't have one, right? And it is very simple. You just need to sign in with your Microsoft credentials. If you have an existing Outlook or Hotmail account, either for your work or even on a personal level, you can use that to sign into Microsoft Learn and get your account created. If you don't have one, so while you are about to sign in, on this dialog, you can see it has a prompt, no account, create one, which has been highlighted in red here, right? So you can simply click on the create one button and you'd be taken through the entire account creation process, which again takes hardly 1 or 2 minutes for you to complete. And once you create your account, you'd be automatically signed into Microsoft Learn and you would be going to step 2. Now, once you are in step 2, it is very simple. You'd be simply looking at a prompt, a dialog on your screen, which will be asking you to redeem your code. You don't have to manually plug in any code here. There's going to be a unique code that's going to be pre-filled in the dialog. All you need to do is just click on the redeem button. Now, once you do that, it's going to process for a few seconds, and then it's going to be showing you a prompt like this that we have added your achievements to your profile. And with that, you have successfully completed your redemption process. Feel free to click on the view profile button and you can explore the different tabs that are available. You can access your courseware from the training tab on your profile on Microsoft Learn. And please be proud of your achievement and celebrate it by sharing your digital trophies on your LinkedIn profile. And don't forget to tag Netcom Learning and Microsoft on all of your posts for maximum visibility and reach. It's a very simple process. I hope everyone is able to follow along and complete it. If you have any further queries, please feel free to use the chat window to post your queries and we'll try our best to assist you. With that, let's go over to the break and we will be resuming the session with Tom shortly. Thank you so much.
Sure, we are now going to take a 5-minute break, but before we do that, we are going to launch a quick poll that we want to invite you to participate in. Doing so helps us know how we can better serve you by telling us who might be interested in more information or in taking some additional training. In addition, we have a lot more informative webinars coming up, so please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars in order to register.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's continue with our topic now.
How about Paint? Now, for some reason, Microsoft is not calling it Copilot inside Paint. So if you bring up the good old legacy app that we've had around a long time, Paint, it can now be upgraded to include Co-Creator. Co-Creator is a version of Copilot, and you can start with a blank page, draw a few things on it, or you just go straight to Co-Creator and ask it, what do you want? We say, okay, what do we want? Let's say we a horse on a bicycle, or is that the other way around? Yeah, bicycle, wearing a hat. See what it does. And I didn't choose a style. We'll see what those styles are in just a moment. And it will start listing something called, as you see here, variants. Now, isn't that crazy? So I can look at this one. The horse is kind of blended with the bicycle. Man, that looks kind of painful. Or a horse on a bicycle. That definitely looks painful. And it looks like a horse cycle. And we may want it in charcoal. Change the style. And maybe I just mistyped it. I probably would say a horse with a cycle. Or let me change that. A horse pulling a cart, wearing a hat. Create. And this is in charcoal style. So we're right back in where DALL-E. DALL-E is driving this. The open AI model called DALL-E is it's being called through an API so that you can use it within this pretty common tool that children use. You can pull it right in, and notice that a different style. We can go to oil painting, and we can also give it a style here in the style of Rembrandt. Create. Responsibility AI guidelines. It's interesting. Well, let's try it again. If it keeps telling me that, I got to change something. A horse and cart, wearing a hat. How about painted in the style of Rembrandt? See if that makes a difference. Wow. Maybe it's something about cruelty to animals that is stopping it. How about we just say a horse wearing a hat? Have him doing anything. Huh. How about a horse? Get it down to. That's correct. Is there something about Rembrandt then? Let's change it to Picasso. So this may be abstract. He did have a abstract period that we all know, but he also had a realistic period. That's cool. Let's see if I can make, while it's done this, I'm going to change it back to Rembrandt. See if it was just stuck on. Wow, it's the word Rembrandt. What's another famous artist? Monet. That should be Impressionist. I like that picture of the horse. Probably should save it. So just to show you that it's being made available to within every application probably that Microsoft has, they're going to be introducing some form of AI through Copilot and even one of their oldest products like Microsoft Paint. So a lot of fun. You can spend hours working on this and experimenting in order to get some results. And of course, I'd have to save it to keep it. Otherwise, it would regenerate it. Now, I've mentioned a couple of times, too, that all of this is available directly with Azure and also at OpenAI's website. So let me close this. Don't save it. Now, again, we've already looked at Bing. That was included, but just one more quick shot at that. By going into Edge, you'll notice it takes you right to, by default, it takes you to a search. But so we could still use the simple concept of looking for exactly certain words, or notice how at the very top, it starts off with use Copilot. Notice how that takes you over to the same interface that we saw before at copilot.microsoft.com, but it's bing.com with chat, basically explaining, what it is and maybe some related questions we might want to look for. So part of copilot.microsoft.com is embedded, of course, within Bing. We can use it directly within Bing or even within the Microsoft 365 products. Now, what about Visual Studio? Visual Studio is where most developers were first exposed to it. So let me bring up a full version of Visual Studio IDE, which is Visual Studio 2022. We're going to start with, let's say, a new project, and we'll keep it really simple. We'll just do a console app. Next. And we'll call this demo Copilot console, just so it's clear that it's a console app, not a web app or anything else. This is one of the simplest type of apps you can build, which is just interactive with the person. Hit next. But it doesn't matter which type of project you choose, it's going to be able to respond. And now it's saying, okay, what version of .NET do you want to use? That's fine. .NET 8. All right, so it throws me right into an example that is basically just say hello world. So if you run it, it builds it, compiles it, generates it, kicks out the output, and simply writing hello world to the console. Easy enough. Now, if I wanted to start working with Copilot, notice how as soon as I just go to a new line, it pops up something. And if I type // it's basically saying, okay, is this the kind of comment you want here? It's kind of just throwing things out. And I could say, create a method to do something. And in the console app, it's very likely it could be print a message. So in addition to IntelliSense that Microsoft has had in Visual Studio for years, which was based entirely on the context of what you were in the middle of typing, this even goes further and even offers suggestions for a comment. But it's not just a comment, it's going to follow through and treat this as a command. Now, create a method to calculate the area of a circle. And notice it's assuming, since I typed the area of, that it thinks it's a circle. If I hit enter, that's exactly what it does. It uses pi, multiplies it times the radius, So that's exactly what we would expect. But we do have to pass in the radius. All right, so if I hit tab again, that means I accept it. That's exactly what I want. So I can continue to treat this as if I wanted to write some very simple code. And then notice it's saying, calculate. And it's warning me, that you've declared this, but it's not being used. So I can say, okay, well, let's use it. Call, whoops. I hit the caps lock. Call. And notice how it went ahead and spelled it out, the method to calculate the area of the circle. Or I can say call calculate and it will finish typing that as well. Hit enter. It says double radius 5. That's good. Hit enter. And now it's saying, okay, let's get another variable called double area, and it's going to pass the value of radius to calculate circle area. And then notice it's also assuming, hey, you probably want to write this out. So let's go ahead and tell you how to write it out. Console.WriteLine. And notice it's using dollar and a string, which is indicating a placeholder. So radius and area will be replaced with the values of those variables. Tab is good. I want that. Then I could say, well, let's go ahead and write out some more, but I don't have to hit tab. It's going to keep suggesting. Now I'm going to go up higher and say, let's say request, not a good one, ask, I need to put slashes, sorry. Ask user for value of radius. And notice I didn't have to say of radius. It said, oh, well, you must be wanting to collect that. So I can go up here and hit enter. It says enter the value of radius, tab, enter. And then notice it had to redefine it higher up. So double radius equals, it's going to read it in, and it's going to parse a text into a double value. Tab, that's very good. Then notice it's warning me, hey, you've got it in here twice, so I don't need this one anymore. And now I can make it variable to whatever the user wants to do. So notice it says the next time characters will be at the null if no more lines are available. So it reads the next line of characters. So I might want to, maybe put something in between it. Enter the value of the radius, read it, parse it. It's not really a warning. Let me go ahead and build it and we'll see. Rebuild the whole thing. Yeah, that works. Okay, let's run it. All right, so the first thing it asked me, what's the value of the radius? I'll put in 45. It says, okay, the area of the circle with radius 45 is 6361, blah, blah, blah. That's it. So I didn't have to worry about all the specific details or the syntax. And just that little bit of help can save quite a bit of work. But we also have the chat, the Copilot chat. Now, you'll notice up here at the top, it's saying that it's using GitHub Copilot. And so that was the original name that was introduced in Microsoft products, that this was really brought over from GitHub, and that you have to sign up for an account in GitHub, and either it can be an individual account or it can be an organizational account, so that you can leverage Copilot through GitHub. Now, there are some other ways, too, of working with LLMs, particularly in Visual Studio Code. There could be multiple extensions that do very much the same thing, like connecting to Code GPT is a type of extension that does something similar within Visual Studio Code. And we do also have GitHub Copilot available in Visual Studio Code. All right, so there's plenty of documentation on that, or I could just hide that prompt. Now, to work with GitHub without having to work within the code window, I can go up to the View menu and choose GitHub Copilot Chat. GitHub Copilot Chat now shows up on the right. Let's see, I can close out properties. And now it's just waiting for me to tell it what to do. So let's say we'll create a class that defines a typical person with name, DOB, let's see if we can understand that acronym, age, address, see how it breaks down address, phone, what else might we have in here? And marital status. Let's see if that's good enough. Done. Now, instead of me having to know what the specific syntax is, notice what it's doing. It's writing all the code for public properties. And then it's saying, okay, do you want to preview this? Or would you like to insert it. So if I say insert new file, notice where it went. It went to a new CS file. And I can continue to tell it what to do here. Write a constructor to capture the name, notice how I did date of birth, address, phone, marital status. Well, we don't want to capture age. So let me take that off. Oops. Make sure that's on the same line. In. It didn't actually do it yet. Try that again. All right, so we do have calculate age. That's good. But I really wanted the constructor up here first. Thought we just do capture the name. Well, it's going to do it individually. All right. But nothing's happening. Let's reword this yet. Write a method to capture the details of the person. Yeah, that's a good one. See if we can do that. Look at that. It's just writing the comments. That's not what I expected. All right. Capture the name. All right. Oh, you know what? I'm outside the class. That's what the problem is. Okay. Let's do it again. Write a method to, or write a constructor that takes in all the properties. Yes. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. And that's because oops, I forgot to hit tab. Do that again. Tab. And then I can close the class. So you can see it did take me having to understand where I was. I didn't realize I was typing outside the class. So you cannot write a constructor outside the class. So inside the class, I'm basically saying, all right, let's capture all this information coming in. And that is a typical constructor. That could be the default constructor. And then I can say, write, well, got to put the quotes on it. Write a method that returns, nope, I don't want that one. Write a method to return person's age as of today. No, that's not what I want. That calculates and returns person's age as of today. And so I was wondering if I had to tell it the date of birth, but it did pick up on that. First, it captured today's date, today. It pulled the year out. Let's see, it took the date and it returned the age. Okay. It's a little bit off. The person's age using all of today's date. Because it was only using the year, which was not exactly what I wanted. See if it knows the difference here. No, it's still picking up on it. Itemized to calculate return the person's age in days. How about that? How about calculates? See, I'm having to give it very explicit instructions. Calculates the person's age in days and returns in days and returns age in years. Still doing that. It calculates the person's age in days from today and returns ages in years. All right, so today's date now, time span, age in days is today minus date of birth, return age in days, days. At least it's not taking off the month and the day, so that's probably accurate. So tab that. So you'll notice that it made a lot of assumptions. If I told it just to return the age, then it would not even update the age. In fact, probably don't even need age in here. So that's probably a better idea. So age should not be ever entered as a property. It's just always calculated. So I'll take all that out by hand. All right, let's see if that builds. Go back to Solution Explorer, right click, rebuild to make sure all this codes or compiles, the code compiles. Good. Now let's run it. Go back to my, oops, did this actually save it? Or save it. It's got a dirty flag up there. And notice that it just created, but it may not put it where it needs to go. Let's make sure that it goes right in here with the program file. Yes, save it. And now it's part of the project. Good. So it's got the fields up here for the properties. It's got a constructor to capture all that, and then it's calculating age. Okay, so let's go back to the main program. I'm going to say write a method to create a person object and return the person's age, not in days, in years. All right, so it says create a person, string name, date, blah, 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 return it in age. And oh, I forgot to hit tab. All right, tab to make it real. Okay, create person, string name, date of birth, address, phone, marital status. All right, so now up here, I'm going to slip this in. Yes, ask the user for person's details. Done. It accepted that. So enter the person's name. Yes. String name, read it in. Yes. Enter the person's date of birth. That's exactly what I want. Tab. Enter the date of birth. And notice how it's going to parse it into a date time. Tab. Enter the person's address. Now it didn't break that down. It just put in one string, which is understandable. Enter the person's phone number. Done. Enter the person's marital status. Done. And we don't have any code examples of all the different values we might want. And then city. Do I have city even up there? That's interesting. Where did it get city? Probably assume that with the address. All right, so I'm going to actually take that one out. Don't need that. All right, then call the person method, create person method. Tab, take all those variables that we just captured, exactly what I want. Person's age in years, the person that comes back. But that is not exactly right, because what it did is it just said person when actually Oh, you know what? We should be storing that in that property and make it a read-only property. That's what I was looking for, person.age here. So that's, well, you know what? We need to think about that a little bit better. So I'm going to leave that alone, go back to the person class, and let's see, create a read-only property. Well, there it is. Look at that. It assumed it knew what I was wanting. And notice it says public int age and years, and it's only going to write the get accessor, which is get the date, the year. Age is going to be the year minus the date of birth. And you know what? I'm actually going to calculate with using this, calculate age in days. Let's see, by calling calculate age in days. There it is. Excellent. Much better. So an age in years is the new property, but instead of it calculating it yet a different way, oh, I didn't hit tab again. I got to remember to keep doing that. I'm going to make sure I leverage a method that you could also call directly, but I'm going to let it be also a property. So notice it says calculate age in days, and actually the word in days is misleading because it's using days to get the date, but it's also going to return it. So I'm going to rename this, and you can do that here with rename, and I'm going to change it to years. Include wherever it is. All right, I can do Shift Enter to preview where it's going to do it, and it's done. So age in years is going to get it from calculating the age in years, and it's going to base that on, first of all, age in days, and then take that, divide by 365, and it should be the actual years. All right, so now let's get back to where we were, and person create. All right, and then we're going to say display the person's age in years. So person name is person.age years old. Tab. Did it actually do year? That's not correct. This should be age in years. Yep. All right, so let's run it, which saves it. Your build areas, would you like to continue? No, let's show me what they are. Something's wrong with There's no need to have a return here at all. Put void in front of this. Or is it after it? Can never remember. Person, new, name, blah, blah, blah. What is going on here? This is the write a method to create. I must have stepped over person class. Oh, it needs to return a whole person. No, I'm not going to do that. Let's make sure that this is static. void. Yeah, that's what it is. I'm inside of a static class, so that should always be a static void. It didn't pick up on that. All right, so let's try that again. What are those build errors? Create a person. Oh, it does have to return a person. All right, do it again. Okay, I don't need a variable, I just need to return what it creates. Okay. Let's rebuild the whole thing again. Okay, now that works. Run it. All right, so the first thing it asks, enter the value of a radius. Okay, we'll put it as 1. So of course that's going to calculate to almost to the long value of pi, 3.1459. Okay, person's name, I'll put in myself, Tom. Date of birth, let's go to 9/4/1960. Whoops. Good round number. Oh, back up. Now, will it be able to interpret that? You know what, I might, just to make sure, I'll put some slashes in here. Person's address, Elm Street, Atlanta, Georgia. Enter. Person's phone number, 404-123-1234. Marital status, M for married, 63 years old. Press any key to close this window. Boom. All right. So that is working. And I really didn't have to type much code at all. This is all the test information up here at the top. Now, how do we build a unit test from this? Well, let's go into one of these, and one of the original ways. Line in, blah, blah, blah. Do you want to normalize the line in? Sure, I don't care. All right, let's say that I wanted to make sure that I could test this. So for example, calculate age in years, test the property that it's actually determining that, or even test the construction. So what you can do is you can select the code that you want to test, and then over in the GitHub Copilot, let's see if it can do it from the very beginning. I can say slash selected create a unit test. So notice it's creating the code to actually write it for testing it. But where would I put it? Remember, you would have to create a new project. So I could tell it to create the new project, but you remember how easy this is too, that may be better, simpler, is to right click, create unit tests, and notice how it assumes that we're going to create a whole new project. It's like, okay, we'll do that. And then once I've created that unit test, I can go back to Copilot and say, okay, I do want to copy this, or insert in new file, could do that. And now I've got person test.cs. All of these are still, wow, that snuck up on me, sorry. All of these editors have the asterisk on it indicating that they're dirty and they have not been saved. So I can go up here and I can either close them out or I can save them all. But it's usually a good idea to make sure that you can use Control S, make sure that one's saved. We can say, where do we want it to go? It's going to put it right back into the same project. Or since I created a new testing environment, I can go back up here and come down into console tests, and I can put it right here in person's test. Looks like I'd already put it there actually. So we'll save it. Yes. Because it's already there. Okay, cancel that. Let me see what's in the Solution Explorer. Yeah, there it is. Calculate age in years. Yep, all of that's still there. Oh, this also has a test one. So I've actually generated it twice. I went ahead and put it in 2 different places. So what I could do is just simply copy out, this test, because I'm not going to merge them into the same place, and put them into the file that it's already in. So this is in person tests. I'll come down here and just create another test method. And put the full attribute on there. All right, so I can save this one, but I can throw this one away because I just copied it. And I can save this one. And then I should be able to rebuild the whole solution. So you'll notice now I have 2 projects. One is the code that eventually I want to complete as one project, but then I also have these test cases. And that in itself, as much as developers really don't like unit testing, and most developers don't, this goes ahead and gives you an example that you could try out many different ways. Notice it made up data, test, DOB, January 1st, 1990, a test address, a test phone number, and notice how it assumed a marital status. It even understood that as probably a valid value that you could test. So I could go back and say, well, let's do that again. So I go back into the person class, and I can say, well, I want to test this again. Back in here. Remember, I can do the slash, and then I could say selected, create another unit test. All right, so now it's going through it again. It looks like it may be the same data. And it's also turning around and testing to make sure of, did it put that in the same place? Let's double check. Nope. So I can insert it into a new file. Let's see where that goes. All right, it's doing the same thing it did before. It's going to try to keep it where I was, so I may have to move it and put it into the right project, because I could have multiple projects, or I could simply copy it and create, like right here, I'll copy it, and then I can switch back myself into the class that already exists, come down here, and just drop it right in. Definitely much easier than oh, I copied everything. Let's get rid of all this. So I've got something that's going to test the returns correct age, and also one to assigns properties correctly, passing in some test information. So I can notice that it would not be able to calculate the age until it created a new person. So it's going to dummy up a person before it can calculate the age. So it assumed all of that information for the unit test. Fantastic. And if I'm going to call the constructor, it's just testing how to build the object first. So it creates the dummy data, calls the constructor, and then it turns around and says, is it actually recording what I sent it in the right properties? Making unit tests that much easier. Now notice too that it's got some unit tests up here, and if you never fill in what the actual logic should be for the test, it will always fail. So the person test, it's assuming that every method and every class that you've already defined needs some type of unit test on it. So we'll go ahead and dummy one up, but it will fail because until you add the code to test it, then there's nothing to go by. It should fail. So what that created too is another view in Visual Studio for the Test Explorer. And so notice that I now have multiple tests that can be executed to see if they pass. Up here in the top, I can say, okay, let's run all tests to see if they work. There were some build errors. Let's see what they were. Oh, too many brackets. All right, we'll try that again. And only a few passed, and those are the ones that I actually worked on. But I need to go in and find out why are these failing, and it's mainly because I never did write all the tests. So it dummied up some unit tests, and I'd have to go in and put the actual logic in there. Or I could ask Copilot to do it for me. Now, another interesting thing too is that it will even recognize well-known patterns or algorithms. So let's go down here, and I can say write. Oops, supposed to be in comments. Sorry. Write a method to return the Fibonacci, and notice how it automatically knew by just typing FIB to a given number of terms. Okay, what is that going to do? So first of all, it realizes what a Fibonacci is. It's a series of numbers where the previous two numbers are added together to create the next number, and it continues an entire list of integers, as you see up here. So only I could remember to hit tab to keep it. There we go. And then notice it has a number of terms. In other words, even though this would be indefinite, you've got to tell me how far out we want to create one, and then I could return the entire series. All right. I can also tell it to return the ratio between the 100th and 99th Fibonacci numbers. See if that's enough. Return the ratio between the 100th and 99th. No, that's not what I want, because that's the Fibonacci series. I want the difference. It's not what I want. Escape. Turn the ratio between the 100th and 99th Fibonacci numbers. It should be enough. I've got to reword it a different way because that's not a ratio. That's just returning. Oh, you know what? It might be that it's waiting for me to say more. Nope, it's not. About the ratio difference between the 100s. See if that makes. That's good. And notice it took into account that the series starts with 0. So when it says 100th and 99th, that would be the 99th and the 98th exactly. So it's going to take the two, divide them, and then maybe I should change this as a percentage. If that makes a difference, how it may format it. Actually, no, did not catch that at all. Leave it like it was then. I think it was much better. Hit tab. And what we should get is exactly the same ratio every time, no matter which one of these we choose. So if any two together should return the exact same amount, 0.6180339 something. All right, so let's go back to the top here. And we'll move it up to the very beginning. Call. There we go. And write it out. Excellent. So let's run this. The ratio difference between the 100th and is 9. It's supposed to be dividing it. I thought it did divide it. Did it do a minus? Returns this divided by that. Let's make this a double. Run it. It assumed an integer because the values were probably integers. Nope. What am I doing? Now, because I'm hand doing it, it's going to have to keep telling me all the different places I need to change it. Anyone that's well-trained and particularly certified is going to be more productive than other staff. So encouraging to get training as well as certification through Netcom for Microsoft products. So grow your business, grow your career by leveraging the role-based instructor-led training. There are many categories of these for different roles and products, but they begin with fundamentals. When you see a course or an exam with the number 900, those are all fundamental courses. They also have matching certification exams. Then you have the associate level, expert level, and then there are specialty certifications for different types of products in specialized context. For any of the labs that you take, you will have 180 days access to the virtual labs. So the class may last a day or 5 days or any variation, but the labs will be available to you beyond the class hours. Also, the classes are recorded for instructor-led classes, and you have up to 90 days to review the recordings. You have full access to this through Netcom's learning portal. You have the opportunity to get free repeats for any of the courses if you feel like you need a refresher or you may have missed some of the content. And there's 24/7 support for students that attend these courses. Maintain your certification. The renewal process for certifications is very simple, straightforward, and it's a real advantage over the original certification test because it's not timed, it's not proctored, you have no one watching you. You can do it anytime you want, take as much time as you want, and you can look up every answer. It's an open book, open-ended exam because mainly they just want you to be aware of any new features, new technology may be associated with your certification. So keep your certification up to date. You may be reminded after a year or two with your previous certification that it's time to renew it. So renew without having to pay for anything or pass a proctored exam. It's basically getting caught up. Don't let those get by you because you do get a notice well in advance, 6 months in advance. And if you keep delaying it, though, eventually your certification will expire. So make sure you take it within that 6-month period to keep it alive, to keep renewing it and stay certified before it expires. Otherwise, you'd have to go back and take the original exam again. So let's get trained and certified. Contact Netcom for their available courses that you can sign up for. Thank you for attending, and we do have opportunity now for a couple of questions.
Thank you, Tom. That was most informative. I know everyone is looking forward to the Q&A session, so go ahead and start putting your questions into the questions panel. Our first question is, how does OpenAI keep the Chat GPT models current?
Oh, well, they're constantly updating them. They're including more content. They're adding more parameters like we saw from GPT-1 to GPT-4 Turbo, the exponential growth in number of parameters that are being passed, and also keeping it update with more current information. So we can expect them to come out periodically, once or every other year, with the latest models.
Our second question is, what do multiple modalities mean with GPT-4?
Oh, the multiple modalities means that it can accept not just text anymore, but also images as a way to prompt it for what you need it to do. You can ask it to interpret what's in an image as well as give it more text prompting, and it can turn text into speech. So text to speech, text to images, and now the latest is text to video. So you can describe exactly what type of video you would like to create. That's not part of ChatGPT, but that's a separate model, but that's where things are headed, that we can use multiple types of input and expect multiple types of output. So that's called multiple modalities.
And finally, last question of the day, is Copilot free with a Microsoft 365 license?
No, many of the features that you get with Copilot are free, but if depending on your license pricing tier that you may have chosen, you would still need to subscribe to another license per person in order to use Copilot within each of the Microsoft 365 products. As far as what that price is, that could be different depending on your industry, your line of business, if you're in education, government, but it is not free with your Microsoft 365 subscription, at least not yet.
Once again, I want to remind you that as you leave this session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to help us by taking a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience as we are constantly looking at how we can improve our future sessions. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. We want to thank all of you for joining us today, and if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.